Hello, my name is Chloe Folan, and everyone is most welcome to this video on my upcoming mini workshops on Buddhic Columns. So technically speaking, my Buddhic Column mini classes have actually booked out, but if anyone missed the notification, I'm happy to open up another 3 or 4 places if anyone else would like to join. And this short video is also just a FAQ over some of the periodic questions that I've received about the Buddhic Column mini classes. So I'll first of all just bring up my screen share. So on my website, the details have been posted to my website, www.chloefolan.com. And if you go on to the blog section of my website and scroll down, you'll see here where the Buddhic Column mini class information is listed. So the impulse behind these classes and the reason for these classes is over the last year and a half, I've periodically received a lot of questions about Buddhic Columns, what Buddhic Columns are, how to work with them, and how to work with them more effectively. So for people that don't know, the late Josephine and Norman Stevens, the creators of the Rainbow Bridge techniques, or they're also known as the Soul Star Clearing techniques, are the creators of this Buddhic Column technique. It's a technique that's deeply linked with the Rainbow Bridge techniques that I teach. So that's where the queries have been coming from, and one of the reasons for these mini classes, because even though the information on Buddhic Columns, and I'll show a link now in a few moments, you can access the steps on how to create Buddhic Columns for free. But then I always get deeper questions around around the technical side of Buddhic Columns, and then what they actually do, what impact they can actually have. You know, people seeking just some deeper information and insight around what Buddhic Columns do, their causation, and also deeper questions around the mechanics, if you will, of creating and grounding the Buddhic Column thought forms, because they are clearing stations. They are energetic clearing stations that are set up to purify the environmental space they are anchored in. And in particular, they have impact on the astral plane in particular. So these classes, the reason why I have here on my website that instead of the monthly antahkarana group meditations that I usually facilitate, in place of the monthly antahkarana group meditations, starting in April, once a month for 6 months, instead I'm going to be facilitating basic intermediate classes on how to effectively work with Buddhic Columns in more than one way. And that's the reason, because of all of the periodic queries I've been receiving and questions people have been asking. There's just more demand, if you will. There's been more questions and more demand for some classes on Buddhic Columns. So starting in April for the next 6 months, it will be the Buddhic Column classes I will be facilitating once a month, rather than the antahkarana monthly meditations. I'll resume the monthly antahkarana group meditations once the Buddhic Column classes have concluded. So the main prerequisite, although because this class is basically fully booked unless 1 or 2 other people would like to join, there's a main prerequisite that you do have to have completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 first, because your channel is a blueprint in one way for the clearinghouse channel that you create with the Buddhic Columns. So that is why the majority of the people joining the group must have minimum completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 but because that is the bulk of the group that has formed, meaning there's people that are Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 and Monadic Thread joining these classes. So because of that, if there are 1 or 2 people still working through Phase 1 that would like to join, you may, because the bulk of the group meets the minimum requirements. So what will be covered in these classes? So practicing creating Buddhic columns in person, meaning in a location that you're standing in. Because like that, even though the steps are available for free, there's a lot of technical questions that I receive. So there are some adaptions that I can teach, some offerings that I can give based on private testing groups that I've been working with, where I can really assist with confidence over how to really effectively, in all ways, really anchor and be confident in the Buddhic column that you've anchored in a location that you are physically near. And then I'll also cover how to work with creating Buddhic columns for distance locations as well, to help people have confidence when it's a distance location. You know, what might be a county over from you, or an hour away from you, or in another country. So how to do that. I'm also going to go into detail over, once you've established what's called a basic Buddhic column, and I'll be getting people to track their own case studies with this. So I will be providing homework. There will be class handouts, and there will be homework for tracking and recording the Buddhic columns that you create and work with. And once there's confidence in establishing basic Buddhic columns, I'll be teaching techniques for how to work more deeply with Buddhic columns to clear deeper stuck programs within the land that the Buddhic column's been anchored in. And we'll be covering what that is, what releasing old programs is, and how that's done, and how that's worked with in a safe and healthy, effective manner. And when you would do that, because sometimes you don't need to do deeper work with Buddhic columns. Sometimes you do, depending on the location it's been anchored in. So how you go deeper with the process, if that is needed. We will also cover basic healing techniques for people as well. So there'll be a little bit of basic techniques taught over healing work with people. But of course, that is in conjunction with the Buddhic columns. There is a link there between working with Buddhic columns and distance healing for people. And naturally enough, because of that, I will be covering the basics of dowsing. So even if you already know how to dowse, and it's fabulous if you do, it will be a refresher in dowsing and the basics of dowsing. And I do suggest that people do source their own copper pendulum for dowsing. And the reason why I suggest copper is because copper conducts electricity. So it gives you very clear readings when you're dowsing, and dowsing effectively, especially with a copper pendulum, you'll get very clear responses. So that's why it's recommended. But if you already have a pendulum that you work with very effectively, that's fine. That's perfect. So for people that already know the basics of dowsing, that will be a refresher for you. But it's still necessary to make sure everyone's on the same page with how this work progresses. And for people that haven't dowsed properly before, you'll be given very simple, very straightforward techniques for helping you be confident with dowsing, getting very clear yes and no's with dowsing, and then understanding maybes and what that is about. And very importantly, how to stay in your own psychic space when working with deeper Buddhic columns or energy work with other people. And then this will be a very fun part of the class. This will be towards the end of the 6 classes. So working with raising and directing energy and the basics of working with ruin symbols. Because as most people are aware, I'm nearly finished a basic intermediate course in ruins with the fabulous Gavin Bone. It has been an amazing course to do. And even though it is a basic intermediate course. I would nearly call it intermediate. The class, we've been taught some amazing material. It's an amazing course. Gavin is a very patient teacher, and I love the way he's able to explain things so clearly, and the examples that he's able to give just very clear examples when you've got a question. He's a fabulous teacher, the phenomenal Gavin Bone. I'm thrilled with the classes. So it's him I've been doing deeper runic study with. So some of what I will be teaching, I'll be teaching because of how I've been able to deepen my own understanding of runic symbols from those classes. So that's why I'm saying it's experimental work. I'm looking forward to teaching that part of the class in particular, where I can give people some suggestions over how to combine working with runic symbols with Buddhic columns, and a little bit about runic symbols with healing for people as well. So that's going to be very interesting and very insightful to explore. And my hope would be that maybe there might be a demand for that type of work to continue, where maybe in a few months' time, if people keep up with the homework and the class notes and what they've been taught, and as you continue to track your own progress and your own case studies with what's been taught, there might be a need for the Buddhic Column class to meet up again in about 3 months' time, to continue to explore the work that's been taught, especially in respect to the runic work in particular, or maybe just Buddhic columns in general, doing more Buddhic column group work, especially for areas where there's war zones. In particular, I would love to get the Buddhic column group together to do some Buddhic column zones for what's happening with Israel and Palestine at the moment. I think that's badly needed. And while I'm fully aware, a lot of people through their own groups, through their own spiritual groups, have been sending a lot of healing, I'd love to add Buddhic columns to the mix of the healing energies that have been sent. So that's something I would love to do once everyone's on the same page with how to work with the Buddhic columns in a very intricate, very knowledgeable, intelligent way. How to do deeper work with Buddhic columns, and especially when it comes to healing work as well, that everyone's on the same page with how to do that in a very safe, healthy manner, and very confident with the basics of dowsing to support that work. So, as I was saying, in a general sense, these classes are fully booked, but I'll say it again, if anyone missed the notification, I'm happy to open up maybe about 4 more places if anyone would really like to join. And I said, sorry, this just dropped in, I said I would show on the soul1.org website, which to me is the reference website for the Rainbow Bridge techniques. If you log on to, sorry, no, I just need to move a tab here on my screen. If you go on to, and that might not be sharing, let me just check my screen share, 2 moments, please. So if you go on to www.soul1.org, and if you click on Buddhic Columns in the menu bar up the top, you'll be brought to the web page that outlines the steps for how to create Buddhic columns. So if you do want to reference that, please do. But I go into more detail with the columns, and because of the case studies I've been tracking individually and with groups, I'd have some more information to teach, some more adaptations to suggest. But if you have completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1, because it does say it on the website too, if you've completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 and you've got a clear wide central channel, if you would like to go onto the website to look at Buddhic columns, if you would straight away, just from the steps given, if you'd like to start anchoring Buddhic columns, my goodness, please do. So that is there if you would like to straight away start working with Buddhic columns. But if you would like just some deeper one-on-one tutoring within a soul-aligned group, please do feel free to contact me if you'd like to join, because the classes are starting soon in April. starting on April the 5th via Zoom classes. So on that note, I believe that's all I wanted to share. Just let me check my notes from FAQs to see if I missed anything over what people have been asking about with the upcoming classes. No, I've covered all of the FAQs. So on that note, if you would like to contact me, I'll put my details down below this video for how to contact me. I'll also put the link for how to reference creating Buddhic columns for free through the soulone.org website. As always, if there's any questions, please do feel free to contact me. And as always, I hope this video was helpful and insightful. 7 ray blessings to all.